Now that we can log in, register, guard our routes, and handle form validation, let's take a quick look at creating dynamic user profiles. Due to recent changes in Superbase's policy, we only have one user in the app, but let's imagine we had more. We want to be able to see their profiles and dynamically render their data. I'll create a new dynamic page for the user profile inside SRC Pages. Maybe inside users, I need to have a dynamic page with a parameter username. So I'll render the user data in /users/username. And that will be the page rendering the user details. So now, if I run a development server, I already have one running, check on my browser and go to users test account 1. This is the username for the logged in user. And the page we just created is rendering. Now, inside the templates directory, you will see this template. Copy the template to the new file we created and paste right there. And let's use this template as an example for the user profile. Here is how it looks. And of course, it will be extremely easy for me to get the current logged in user data because I can reach out to the profile and get it from my store. So store to refs and then initialize my auth store like this. And now I have the profile data. I can just render any data I want. So let's quickly do that. Inside the SRC, I'll bind that and let's add the profile avatar URL. And this is the avatar URL for the avatar. And if we don't have an avatar, let's pass an empty string and the fallback image will render. I'm not going to set this up now. As for the username, let's grab that. So profile, username, and for the name, profile, name or full name. And instead of this software developer text, I'll do profile and then bio. Now check on the page and we got the data for the current user. We got it from the store. But we don't just want to get the current user. We want this route to work for any username that is passed here in this parameter, which means this is not how we do it. We need to dynamically get the parameter, the username parameter, from the URL and fetch the corresponding user from the database. So let's first get the parameter, so const, and I'll destruct the username parameter out of the use route. And for the use route, I'll pass that this is the user's username route just to narrow down the options and access the params property. And now we have the username. Next step is to get the username account details from the database. So let's work on that. I'll head to utils. Here it is, and then super queries. And let's see if we have a query that we can use for this task. And indeed we do. We have the profile query, which gets the user according to their ID. And we can tweak this query right here to get the profile according to a dynamic thing, not just the ID or something else. It could be something generic. Could be the ID, could be the username, could be the full name, whatever. We can just make it dynamic. So instead of receiving the ID as a parameter, I'll receive an object with two options. The first one is the column, and the second one is the value that we want to search with. So if we pass the column as the ID, then we pass the ID that we want to match. And if we pass the column as the username, then we pass the username value that we want to match it with this column. And then I'll define the type for this object that we are receiving and say that it is an object of a column, which should be a string and a value, and also it should be a string. Then right here inside the query, I'll make the ID or the column to be dynamic according to the parameter we're receiving and also the value. And now this is ready. But let's first update any references of this query. I'll hit Command Shift and F to do a global search. It looks like we're using it right here inside the auth store. So instead of passing the user value ID, I'll pass the object and say that the column property is the ID, like this, and the value property is the user ID, and save. But that's for getting the user profile using the ID. I want to do something similar inside the new component I created or the new page, but to get it with their username. So I'll create here a local state called profile, and that will be a ref with the default value of null. And then we can pass the type to this ref and say that this is, let's get tables, pass an argument as the profile. So this is a profile or null. Then let's create the get tasks method, and that will be an async function, and adjust our function call. So this will be the profile query. I will import that, and we want to look with the username and pass the username we got from the parameter right there. And we also want the error and the status of the request. Then we do handle errors like we are used to. So if error, we can reach out to the use error store, set error, and pass the object error, and the custom code property can get the status. After we are done, if we don't have any errors, then update the profile value with the data we got. And of course, trigger this new function with await. So await get tasks. And this looks good to me. So now this profile will be used inside the template once the data comes from the database, and it will be fully dynamic. Let's see that in the browser. If we do a hard refresh, everything still works. We get the data for the corresponding user. And if the user doesn't exist, we get the development server error. And if we are on production, I expect that we will get the 404 not found error.